Hello, happy Thursday. I had to actually think about that. Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to Hearty Tips with Silka. If you've not met me before, I am Silka. I am Chief Paint Slinger at Heart for Art, and I teach people step by step how to paint. I do that online, like this, and also in my studio as well. So today, I'd really like to help you learn colour mixing. So today I will be teaching the basics of colour mixing, which we would use to paint our happy rainbow. This one right here. Yay! It's a nice, simple, easy one, and it's a good way to learn colour mixing. All right, so that's what we'll be doing today. Now, if you've just started to learn to paint, you know, I don't remember not knowing how to learn to paint and mix colours and stuff, but if you've just started to paint, nobody's taught you how to mix colours before, then you may not know what colours to use to get the colours you want, or maybe you're not sure how to mix the colours themselves, and you're mixing and you're just not getting the colours you want. And sometimes, it's easy to overthink as well and overmix colours. That's really easy to do, and then you end up with a muddy colour. So what I'm going to do today is I will teach you the basics of colour mixing, and I'm going to start using the three primary colours, red, blue and yellow, and I will teach you how to combine those together to make the secondary colours and loads of other colours as well. And I'm going to teach you the best way to actually mix them together as well. All right, and that's important because it'll give you an understanding of how colors work together and how they mix together as well. So this is a really good exercise, not just in learning the basics of what colors to mix together, but how they mix together and how to mix them together as well, because it's not as simple as you think, but it is as simple as you think when I show you how. All right. So at the end of the tutorial, you will know how to combine your colors, what colors to combine, and how to mix them to get the colors that you want, all right? And it'll give you the confidence basically to mixing confidence. You won't be too scared to mix stuff. You'll have confidence and you'll be on your way to mixing any color under the rainbow, all right? Under the rainbow. The rainbow, yes, cool. So what you need is at least one brush. I'm going to be using a Tacklon number 8. A smaller one wouldn't go astray either. And potentially maybe a 1/4 inch as well. Whoops, over there. A 1/4 inch as well, which is a flat brush. Okay. Hi Joe, good to have you here. Hope it's nice and warm where you are because it's cold down here. Thanks for joining me. And I will be using, like I said, the primary colours. So I've got cool red, cool blue and cool yellow, and I will be using those to mix. Those are the only colours I need to paint the rainbow, believe it or not, just 3 colours. And you'll need something to paint on, so I'm going to be painting on a little square canvas. It's got a nice deep frame, but I'll just be painting on the front today. And of course you need some water to clean your brush in, and a paint rag. Where's my trusty paint rag? I've got heaps of rags that are just covered in paint. They're almost murals in themselves. So that's all you need, basically. And now the reason I am teaching you this one is because very often when I paint with people in the studio, I see the trouble that they sometimes have mixing their colours, all right? Now, I recently had someone trying to mix a colour and they just couldn't get the colour that they were after. They just kept adding paint and adding paint and adding paint until they had about ½ litre on the palette and still didn't have the colour they wanted. Now, luckily, I'm in the studio and I can, show people straight away. I can teach them one-on-one when they're in with me in the studio. But when you're at home, I can't do that. So, I see this. It's a really common mistake to make. I see it very often. And it's not your fault. It's not their fault. It's basically that nobody's ever shown them how to mix colours before. So it's not a big deal, So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to show you. But before we paint, we need to do a quick sketch. All right, I'm just going to sketch a bit of rainbow shape in. Now you can go freestyle if you want and not have any lines, but I'm German and I like my lines. I like to paint within the lines sometimes. So I'm just going to switch my view so that you can see my palette. Now I have had some black shimmery line issues with this view, so hopefully it will work for me today. Alright, so I'm just going to switch, I click on that, there you go. Now you can see my palette and what I'm working on. So do let me know if there's any issues with the view today. I know I've had issues in the past. Hopefully there will be no issues today. So first thing we're going to do is sketch a rainbow. Alright, so now your rainbow, your basic rainbow is your Roy G. Biv. You would have learnt that at school. So I'm just going to paint, I'm going to just place it sort of, you know, here's one I prepared earlier. So I'm just going to not put it right in the center. I'm going to put it a little bit higher up, alright? And I'm going to start with the middle one. No, I'm not. I'm going to start roughly, I'm just going to start anywhere. It doesn't really matter. So I want the first one to go off the top of the paint. The palette, the canvas, all right? So it's going to be my red one. So we're going to have one red, and then we're going to have orange, yellow. They're not entirely straight, but it'll give me something to go off. Green, red, orange, yellow, green, and then indigo, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. Alright, so that just gives me a guide to go on. Alright. Now, you don't have to have gone to art school for years and years or watched hundreds of hours of art tutorials to be able to enjoy painting. Alright, as long as you have the basics sorted, you're good to go. Alright. So if you don't know what colours to use to get the colour you want, the first thing I want to teach you today is about primary colours. Okay. These are basically the primary colours. You've got your red, your yellow, and your blue. Now they're the base colours that can't be made up of any other colour, all right? But you use those colours to mix every other colour, if that makes any sense. So these are what I'm going to be using today. So if you imagine you've got 3 pieces of cellophane, red, yellow, and blue, and if you overlap those pieces of cellophane, together they will make a different colour. So if you had the red one and the yellow one, for example, and you overlap them, it would make orange. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to mix the colours together and get those overlapping colours. Now, of course, if you've just got one piece of cellophane of each colour and you overlap them, excuse me, you're just going to get the one colour that they make. But with paint, the beauty is that you can use varying degrees of each amount of paint. Depending on what hue you want to get, you can make something more red or more yellow, for example, by putting more or less of each colour in. So you've got that freedom to mix to the hue and the colour that you want, which is beautiful. So now we're going to mix our secondary colours. Now this is a colour wheel. If you ever see one, they're super handy to have. I remember my mum had one when I was a kid and I just loved playing with it. The way it works is that you choose, I cheat and use, you know, decide what colour I want. If I want to mix purple, then I'll turn the wheel and it'll tell me that I have to mix red and blue to get purple. All right. Now I'm going to try and teach you to do that instinctively today, but by practicing. But if you want to get a colour wheel, they're super handy to have. But we're going to use these primary colours. You'll see the primary colours are placed 1, 2, 3. And all of these colours, these 3 primary colours, are used to make the secondary colours, which are the colours in between, all right? So those are the colours we're going to mix today, the ones around the edge, to make a rainbow. So, yes, if you see one of these in the art shop or anywhere, grab one. They're super handy to have. So if you remember at primary school or wherever you learnt, Roy G. Biv are your colours of your rainbow. So that's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Now when you start to paint, it can be really tempting to buy all the colours that you want. You know, there's so many available. But I find having less colours will actually work in your favour because it will force you to try and mix the colour that you want rather than just reaching for a pre-made colour. All right, and by forcing you to mix the colour, you will get a much better understanding of your colours and how they work. All right, so if you're not sure how to mix your colours, or you're not getting the colours you want, the second thing I want to teach you is how to mix your colours. All right, and like I said, we're just going to use the 3 basic colours here. That's all you need. So you're not just going to add equal parts of each colour, you know, like the 2 bits of cellophane over the top of each other. I mean, you can, but you'll probably find that it's not going to work quite the same with paint, all right? Now, it's much easier to make a colour darker than it is to make a colour lighter, all right? Darker colours are very dominant. You'll see that the blue here is more dominant than the red, and the red is more darker than the yellow. So these are the darker they are, the more dominant they're going to be, and you only need a little bit, a tiny smidge to change the lighter colour. So you can imagine putting a whole bunch of that yellow into the blue. It's not going to do as much as putting all of that blue into the yellow. It's just going to overpower it, all right? So when you're mixing, always start with the lighter colour, all right, and just add little bits of the darker colour as you go, just a little smidge at a time, and just keep adding little bits of it as you go until you get the colour you want, all right? Like I said, if you just mix 2 blobs of the same colour, of colour together, of the same amount, you're going to end up with a colour that's probably way darker than you want. And if that happens, don't even try to lighten it, because you'll need way too much of the lighter colour. Best to just start again. So what we're going to do first is we're going to mix the orange first. Let me grab my brush. And we're going to start, like I said, we start with the lighter colour, and then we add a little bit of the darker colour, all right? So I'm going to start with yellow. Now, I always move my paint to a different spot to preserve the colour of the original dollop, all right? So I'm going to start with a bit of yellow. And then, like I said, you just tiny dips into the red. See, I haven't got very much there at all. Can you see that? It's not very much at all. And it's probably still going to have quite an impact. You can see it's got quite an impact. So a massive dollop of yellow and a tiny, tiny little bit of red was all it took to turn that orange. All right, so you can see that the red really doesn't, you really don't need much of the darker colour. Now the paint's quite dry. Well, not dry, but it's quite thick, so to not get blobby edges or rough lines, I'm just going to dip my brush in water and just thin that a little bit, just so it goes on a bit easier and doesn't go all blobby. Yay, we've mixed our first colour. So normally I'd say keep adding red until you get the colour you want. If you want it to be a bit darker, add a tiny bit more red. But just remember that that red is very dominant, so you really don't need much at all. All right, so what we're going for is a shade that's in between the yellow and the red. All right, so that feels kind of halfway-ish. Yeah, nice. All right, so we're going to paint our orange rainbow. Now, it isn't the first one. Red is the first one, so we're going to skip one, and we're going to paint the second one. All right. Now, we're just going to paint that in nice and easy. I haven't got enough paint on my brush. Let's put a bit more on. And we're going to paint the first bow of our rainbow. Now, I'm not really going for precision. Oh, I'm just going to do up my cuff so I don't dip that in the paint. I do that quite a lot, and then I smear it elsewhere. Now, I'm not going for precision finish today. It's more about learning to mix colours than painting a beautiful rainbow. And besides, I've got one already. But if you want to watch this now and paint with, later and watch it, then, you can take a little bit more time to get your lines perfect or better than my roughness here. All right, I just want to show you how to mix the colours is my goal today. All right, so we've done our orange. Now, if you're using warm colours, I'm using the cool red, blue, and yellow. If you're using warm colours, you might get a slightly different shade, but the colours will still behave the same. You just add a little bit as you go. So now I'm going to just get the paint off and clean my brush and do the red next. And that's just going to be straight red. We don't need to mix anything. That's just the primary colour of red. Now red, all paints are made from different pigments in nature. different like rocks and plants and things like that. And red is just such a beautiful, vibrant, brilliant colour. This is actually the exact same colour of my roof. If you've been to the studio, I always say when you've got weekly tickets, just look for the bright red roof, and you can't miss it. I do love red. Since I've lived here, I've become a magpie for red things. I never used to before, but I do love my red. Lovely. Cool. And now we're going to clean the brush because red is dominant. I can't just dip it in the yellow and go. I'm going to give that a clean, and it's important to dry your brushes as well because you don't want your brush to dribble. I mean, I'm painting flat today. If you're painting on an easel and your brush is wet, it will dribble. So always make sure to dry your brush. So now I'm just going to use straight yellow, and I'm going to do the next one. This is just such a fun, simple, easy painting to do if you're new to painting and you just want to get the hang of how the paint works, get the hang of your brushes and how the paint goes on your canvas, and of course the colour mixing. This is a really, I specifically chose a rainbow because I knew it would use all the colours, and that we would get a chance to mix all of the colours on this painting. So now we've got our yellow one as well. We've got some colour happening. It's looking good already. Yay. So next we are going to mix green, and I've already got yellow on the brush. So I'm just going to take the yellow, and that mixes with blue to make green. All right. So we're going to take a bit of yellow, and the blue is even more dominant than the red. All right. So we really don't need much at all. We're just going to take the tiny, like dip the toe of the brush, the very tip of the brush, tiny little bit in blue. It's possibly, see, I've got the tiniest little amount of blue there. Can you see that? Tiniest little amount, and it's going to totally change that yellow. See, it didn't take much at all. That's amazing. You use a massive dollop of yellow and the tiniest little dip of blue. I probably want to go a little bit darker because again I want to get somewhere in between, a shade in between the yellow and the blue. So I'm going to use the tiniest little bit again and mix that in. That feels a little bit more in between the yellow and the blue. Cool. So now I'm going to paint my green. And that is feeling a little bit dry, so I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of water and mix that in just so that the edges go on a bit. I get a bit sort of cleaner edges. The more fluid the paint is, the easier it goes on. And another wee tip, if you're painting, don't hold your paintbrush straight up and down to your canvas. Hold it a little bit more parallel because all the paint sits around the outside of the brush rather than sitting on the tip of the brush. So if you hold it a little bit more parallel to your canvas, you'll actually put a bit more paint on. You'll notice it straight away. Nice green bow, which is a bit fatter at the top, but that's fine. Like I said, this is really about just teaching you colour basics, colour mixing basics, rather than getting a perfect rainbow. Rainbows are pretty perfect in real life though, aren't they? Especially when you get a double rainbow. Ooh, double rainbow. They're pretty cool rainbows. Don't see them all that often in Wellington because it's just a little too windy. Generally, if it's really windy, you don't get rainbows. Not sure why that is, but okay. Now we are going to paint our blue next. So we can give our brush a bit of a clean and a dry. Make sure we don't dribble. And we're just going to use the straight blue. This is a nice cool blue. Now there are it's called cool blue because there is also a warm blue. Actually, there's heaps of different blues. There's just so many different blues. It's ridiculous. But the basic, there's cool blue and warm blue. And of all the colours, there's a cool version and a warm version. And it's just the difference between whether the colour comes forward or goes back. All right, the cooler colours tend to behave slightly different than the warm colours, but that's just a matter of practicing and trying them out and seeing, what you prefer. There is no right or wrong It's really just what you prefer personally. So it's all good. My blue's a bit wonky there, but I can fix that when I paint the next line. Okay, so the next step between the red and the blue, there's two colours that we're going to do next because we've got two more colours to go. Normally red and blue will make purple if you mix those together, but we've got two stripes of our rainbow left, so we need to paint an indigo as well as a violet. Now this brings me to the third thing I wanted to teach you about using less colour. All right, now often people, when they start to paint, when they start mixing colours, they will totally overthink it and just try to use too many colours all at once. All right, now when you do that, you generally just end up with a muddy colour. All right, so if you can, always keep it to as few colour combinations as possible, like 2 colours generally, 3 sometimes, but don't try and mix 5 or 6 different colours together. You're just going to end up with a muddy mess. All right, imagine all those bits of cellophane, all those different colours of cellophane overlapped. You just get a mess of colour at the end. So always try to start with your primary colours as well. And remember, just add a little bit at a time. All right, a little bit of a new color at a time, and if it's not working, you know, if you go horribly wrong, just start again. It doesn't matter. The world ain't going to end if you mix a color that's not right and you start again. All right, so to mix our violet or purple, we're going to start with red. I'm going to clean my brush because the blue is the dominant darker color in this relationship of color, so to speak. So I'm going to clean that and I'm going to start with red. The same way we started with the yellow, the red in this relationship is the lighter colour. So we're going to take a bit of the red. And again, just the tiniest little dips of blue. I'm just going to put the tip of my brush in the blue and get some blue and mix that in. And you'll see that already with just that tiny little amount, it's made a difference. All right, so that's not purple yet, clearly. So I'm going to add a bit more blue in. And it's really just about adding a little bit at a time. If you put too much in, it's very difficult to go backwards. You'll need, as you've seen, you need like 40 times more red than you do blue. All right, so you'll need to put like half a litre of red in to go back. So that's why I say if you've gone too far, just start again. It's not a big deal. But it is easier if you just add a tiny little bit at a time. That's the key, just adding a tiny bit at a time and keeping on adding little bits until you've got a colour you're happy with. It's still looking very brown for me at the moment. Until I get a purple I like. It's starting to look good. Alright. Yeah. Probably looks quite dark to you. I'm a little bit closer to it, but that's starting to look a nice purple. So you can see if I take a bit off the palette, you can see it's starting to go purple. I'm just going to test a little bit. You don't always have to mix all of it. I'm just going to test a little bit over here to see what happens if I put a bit more purple. Oh, that's nice actually. That's more purple. I like that. So I'm going to put a bit more in. A little bit. Just the key really is just a little bit at a time, so that you can see the gradual colour shifts. Because if you put a lot in, it'll just be way too dark or not what you want, and it'll be harder to go back. So I'm going to keep just adding my blue a little bit at a time. I'm getting pretty happy with that now. Yeah, I'm getting happy with that. Lovely, we have a purple. Sorry, violet. It's the colour in the rainbow is the violet. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. It would have probably sounded weird, purple. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple. Actually, that's kind of cool. I like that. But like I said, there's 2 steps. Purple is the last colour. We need another step in between our blue and our violet. So this is a real good chance for you to see the difference. I mean, as I was mixing, you could see the difference that adding more or less red makes. All right. So this is where you can see how you can get to stages. So I'm just going to take a lot more red and mix it in over here to get our violet colour. All right. Now, it's not going to be as violet because I'm using cool colours, but it's that step in between. All right. So where the purple is sort of halfway between the red and the blue, although I've chosen to go quite dark today, this one's going to be halfway between these two colours, the indigo, the violet and the red. And you can just see already that the more red I've put in has made it a colour closer to the red. So if I were to put more blue in, I'd get a colour closer to blue. And that's just, this is just 2 steps. If you have a play, have an experimentation session, and just you can keep adding. You could get 20, 30 shades between these two colours and these two colours if you want to. It's just a really good way to show you the difference. As you add more or less of each colour, you get, slightly different shades. So now that we've got our indigo, let's paint the next bow of our rainbow. Lovely. That's a pretty colour too, actually. I mean, I know on the computer generated rainbows, the violet is a lot brighter, but I quite like one that's a lot more closer to the purple. So, but you can mix it any shade you want. It's your rainbow, it's your painting. Whatever you do is correct. That's one of my favourite sayings, because you really can't do anything wrong when you're painting. Okay. And now I'm going to just mix my brush into that one. I don't need to clean it. And I'm going to get the purple, and I'm going to paint the purple one. And, like I said before, I'm not going for precision or perfection here. And to be honest, I enjoy painting a lot more when I'm not trying to be perfect. I mean, I've done some paintings over the years where all the lines are so perfect, but it took me hours, and to be honest, it kind of made it a bit stressful. The whole point of painting is that you're relaxing and having fun and just getting that good mental health boost with no stress. So I highly encourage you not to be too perfectionist, because you will enjoy it more if you just loosen up a little. Oh, I dribbled. Doesn't matter. I'll paint over that. Yes, if you just loosen up a little and relax and enjoy it. And often paintings look a lot more fun and quirky when they're not, perfectly done as well. Okay, now that we've done our violet, we're going to do our sky background, and we're going to paint the sky background over the whole lot here. We'll put the tree on later. We're going to paint in layers. We're going to put the tree on later. So we're just going to fill in our whole blue sky background. So we're going to need to clean our brush and not dribble like I did here. It doesn't matter though, because I'll paint over it in a second. So clean our brush and dry our brush on our paint rag. And now I can show you what happens when you use white and black. All right. I think it's pretty obvious that you use white, the colour's going to go lighter, and you use black and the colour's going to go darker. So we're just going to do a quick step of mixing blue and white to make our light blue background, and then once we get to the tree, I'll show you how you can use the white and the black to do shadows and highlights as well. All right. So again, you start with the lighter colour. Always start with the lightest colour, and you need more of the lighter colour than you do of the darker colour generally. And again, a little bit at a time until you get a blue that you like. And you can see I've done 2 of the tiniest little dips of blue and a lot of white, and it's already made quite a difference. I want reasonably blue skies, so I'm going to do a few more dips, but again, just really slowly add your colour, a little dip at a time. Once you get more proficient and have a bit more practice, you'll get the hang of how much colour you need each time. But while you're still learning, it's just a really good idea to just add a little bit at a time so that you can see it as it's happening and not go too far. Once you've gone too far, it's difficult to get it back. All right, I think I'm going to go a bit lighter than my original. That's quite a lot lighter. But then remember also that paint does dry a little darker than it looks on your brush. So there we go, and you can see I've got some dry edges happening here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll hold that up a bit closer. You can see there's just rough, dry edges happening there. Now that is because the paint is just a little too thick. So I dip my brush in water, and I take that and I mix it into the paint. The more fluid the paint is, the easier it will go on. I must have said that so many times in my studio with people over the years. So you can see that's going on a lot better. I'm getting a nice cleaner edge now. Cool. So we're going to put our blue background down, our sky background. See how easy it is to get that nice clean edge there so quickly when you've got a little bit more water in your paint. I mean, you don't want to put too much in because then it'll go runny and see-through, but just enough that it gets a little bit more fluid and goes on a bit easier. I'll fill that whole blue background in. Sky, we have sky, blue sky. Yay. Yay for blue sky. We've had some really beautiful blue sky days in Wellington recently. After all the rain, it's been such a treat. I mean, it almost felt like summer. A couple of days it just got really warm and I had all the windows open and it was just lovely. So now I'm just going to paint over that. Yeah, I love sun. I love summer. I love blue skies. I need my daylight and my sunshine every day. So I love it when we have good weather. Lovely. I'm just going to fill that last little bit in. A little bit more there. You can see I've picked up a little bit of that wet red, but you just sort of keep blending and eventually you can't even see it. Oh, I missed a bit there as well. Just get that. Lovely. So we've got our whole canvas painted now. Beautiful. Now, just so I don't make you sit here and literally watch paint dry, I'm going to cheat and use a hairdryer. So if you are painting along with me, grab your hairdryer and we're just going to dry that. Now, before I do that, let me just explain. When you're drying, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this on here, but no, I don't think I've got the right light to show you that. Generally, when you're painting, your paint will be shiny when it's wet. All right, so when you're waiting for it to dry or you're not sure it's dry, so I don't know if you can see a little bit of shiny is happening here, a little bit of shininess happening there. If it's shiny, it's wet. Okay, it will stop being shiny and will go to a dull color when it's dry. So that's how to know if it's dry or if it's wet. If it's shiny, it's wet. Right, I'm just going to dry this real quick. Can you see that, how it's sort of bits of it are shiny and bits of it are not? So there's bits of it that are dry and there's bits of it that are wet. So the shiny bits are the still wet bits. Cool. Now I only really need to dry where I'm putting the tree. When you're painting, often you'll layer colours on top of each other to get the effect that you want, but you can't layer one colour on top of another colour if it's still wet. You need to make sure it's dry before you put the second colour on, unless you want to blend those two colours together. But for the purposes of today, we're layering our tree on top, so we need the background to be dry. So now we are going to mix brown, and brown is a colour that is not made up of two colours. You need three colours. So it may seem a little trickier, but it's not really, because brown is made up of purple and orange. All right, so we've already mixed a purple and we've already mixed an orange. So we can either grab those two colours and mix them together, or we can mix a new colour if we haven't already mixed that. You know, if we're doing a painting, we haven't already done that. You want to mix, again, it's about adding colours together. So it's not just equal parts of all three colours. You need to sort of have a practice and you know, get different shades of brown happening. Oh, hello, Heather. Hi, Heather. Good to see ya. Thanks for joining. Hope you're liking our rainbow. So, purple and orange. So, you can start with any colour you want, but again, generally start with the lighter colours first. Always, you know, if you can, start with the lighter colours first. So we're going to do mix our orange. Now we want to go a bit darker this time because purple and orange make brown. So we've used, to make orange, we used red and yellow, and to make blue, we used red and yellow. So we can use a little bit more red in our purple. And again, this is just a matter of experimenting, and after a while you'll get the hang of it. So again, I'm going to use a tiny little bit of the blue there and just mix that in, and I'm sort of starting to get a brown, but this is where you get to decide how red, how blue you want things to be. So it's a matter of just experimenting and adding colour till you're happy. All right, I'm just going to put a bit more yellow in. I'm going to go for a tree-ish brown. So it's quite dark. I want it to be a little bit lighter, so I'm going to put a little bit more yellow in. So it's really just mixing to your perfection, and experiment. Have a play. Try a few colours, and if you get a colour you don't like, then start again, you know. So I'm going to go a little bit more yellow, and then I'm happy. And then again, because I don't want dry, rough edges when I do my brush strokes, I'm just going to dip my brush in water and thin that paint a little bit so it'll go on a bit easier. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just paint some branches in. All right, now there's no perfection involved here, they're just literally rough squiggly lines. The only thing to keep in mind is that branches get thinner as they get away from the trunk. So we're going to start at the thin bit and we're going to work towards the trunk. And the difference between the thick and the thin is just pressing a little bit harder. So if I press lightly, I'll get a thin line. If I press harder, I'll get a thicker line. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. And to get a nice tip to get our thin bit, we basically hold the brush on the palette and we twirl and pull. So I'm turning the brush and I'm pulling it, and that will get most of the paint off, and you'll get a nice tip. All right, so that you can get a nice tip of your branch. Now you can put them anywhere really, and it's literally just some squiggles. There we go, there's one branch done. And then we might put some other branches out, and it's yeah, just like I said, don't be too perfectionist or overthink it. The more loose and relaxed you are, you'll often enjoy it more. I'm going to put my main trunk here, and it's literally just a whole bunch of squiggly lines. You can go as far into your rainbow as you want. Another branch there. I'm just going to put random branches everywhere, essentially. We want to get one way over here as well, actually. I'm going to put a nice big one there. And lots of little offshoots, side branches, twigs, whatever you call them. And getting a bit thicker as we get to the bottom, obviously. Cool, so it's that easy, you know? Simple, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, now this is where I'm going to show you how to do some highlights and shadows. All right, and this is the simplest way to do it. You can get all complicated and use opposite colors to do this, but I'm going to do the simplest way because we're learning here. Okay, so the easiest way to get some highlight colors is just to add a little bit of white. So again, we want to just take a tip of our brush and dip it in white and use a little bit of that color that we've got there and just make it a bit lighter. Now because we're using white into a darker color, you'll need a bit more, and you don't want to go too light, but enough that it's going to look like a highlight. All right, so I've got a lighter brown here now, and again I'm just going to dip my brush in water and thin that paint a little bit so that my paint's not too blobby on my brush, and I'm going to keep twirling and pulling so I just use the tip of my brush. All right, now imagine where the sun's coming from. I'm going to have it coming from here, going that way. All right, so everything on the right hand side in the top, or rather here, right hand side on the top is going to have highlights on it. right? So I'm just going to use the very tip of my brush and just do some little highlights. And I'm not going to do too many. I'm just going to sort of roughly do little blobs, and it really doesn't matter if you miss, you know, don't get them in exactly the right place. It's just about adding another shade of colour, which instantly gives your tree a bit of dimension. All right, this is the quickest and simplest way. I'll do another tutorial at some point about adding shadows and highlights, but this is a nice, quick, easy way to do it. Is just add a lighter shade of the colour, and that will instantly, using the tip of your brush so it's not too thick, that will instantly give your branch a bit of dimension. And then in a second we will do the shadow as well. So I'm doing the tops and most of the right hand sides of my branches. Have I got them all? No, can you see that? I'll just hold it a bit closer so you can see it. So I've done really rough squiggles, just sort of on the right hand side of all the branches and on the tops, except for that one. I missed that one. There we go. And that one. Cool. But really rough squiggles, just because we're not going for a photo finish here, we're just giving an impression of a tree. All right. So then I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to do the opposite. So instead of putting white in my brown, I'm going to put a bit of black. All right. And this is like the most dominant color, so you never ever need a lot of black. All right. You only ever need the tiniest amount of black. So the tiny little toe dip of black, and you can mix it into your brown. Tiny little bit more. So you probably can't even see that. It's just the least amount of black on my brush, and it's not focusing either. Okay, but yes, I'm just going to go a little bit darker. You want it to be dark enough that it looks like a shadow. Cool. So I've got quite a nice dark brown there now. And again, I'm going to do that twirl and pull. Twirl my brush and pull, and I'm going to get a nice tip. Now I'm going to do the opposite side of the branch that I've just done. So opposite where I've put the highlights, I'm going to put the shadows. Now you want to make sure that the original mid-tone of the brown, that you know, the majority of that is still there, because otherwise you're going from light straight to dark. You need to make sure there's still the mid-tone in between. So now I'm just going to put these dark shadow colors on the bottom and the left sides of all my branches. Well, not all of them, just some of them. And that just gives it a little bit more depth again. Oh, is that dark enough? Might not be dark enough. Might just have to add a bit more so that it really stands out as a shadow. There we go. Now we can see it. Just add these shadows. My tree's getting a bit bumpy, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a nice, quick, easy painting to do. A few shadows there. And again, the looser you are, you don't have to be perfectionist. The looser you are, the more you tend to enjoy it. Took me years to learn that as a pedantic German. Alright, so our tree's in. Yay, easy. Now we don't need to wait for this to dry, but we do need to clean our brush. Alright, because we are now going to add some leaves, and we're just going to do nice happy little dollops. Essentially, dry our brush. Now we've already got some green. If that hasn't dried up, oh, most of mine's dried up, we'll mix a bit more. So it was yellow, remember, and a little bit of blue till we get a green we're happy with. That's a little bit darker than our original, so I can put a little bit of yellow back in just to lighten that up. And again, a dip of water just to make it a bit thinner, because we want these dollops to go on nice and easy. We don't want dry, rough edges on our leaves, right? And this is fun. This is a nice, easy bit. You're just doing lots of dollops. You can do some big dollops, some little dollops, dabs, dollops. I don't know what to call them. Dots. It's almost like Australian dot painting. the Dreamtime painting. That's some cool painting. There's some really stunning stuff in that art genre. And you're just going to do loads and loads of green dots. Well, leaves, green leaves. And you can overlap a few onto your branches. You can do bigger ones or smaller ones. You can do as many or as few as you like. As the artist, you get to decide. Yay! Cool. Now don't fill your whole tree though, because we are going to add another shade of green. Just the same way that by adding the highlights and the shadows to your tree, it gives it dimension and depth. We're going to do the same thing with our leaves. Alright, so I think I've possibly got enough of those, and I can always put some more on later if I want to. Now we're going to mix, sorry, I've run out of yellow, run out of green rather, again, so I'm just going to mix some more. But this time I'm going to put a little bit more green, more blue in, because I want a darker green. Alright, so again, just add a little bit at a time is the best way to do it. And a bit of water just to thin your paint, not too much, you don't want it to go runny all over the place, but enough that it's thin enough to go on. I'm going to go darker still, but again, just a little bit of blue at a time is the safest way when you're learning to mix paint. So is that dark enough? Yeah, that's darker. And then I'm going to just do some more dabs of green. It could be darker actually. I'm going to put a little bit more blue in. Okay, that was a lot more blue. You see what happened there? It went a lot darker, but I quite like it. So it's a happy little accident, as Bob Ross would say. And then we're just going to intersperse these all over the place, just wherever you feel led to put them. There's no right or wrong with painting. That's the joy and beauty of it. It's just there for the most perfect me time, the best anti-stress. Just when you paint, I always say you put a massive happy deposit in your emotional bank account when you paint, because it's just fun and it's stress relieving and it's good. Okay, gone a bit too uniform there. Alright, so I've got some nice little difference between the light and the green now. I don't know if you can see that. There's some nice differentiation between the light and the green now. And the more different shades of the same colour that you put on, the more depth and the more dimension you're going to get. So, I mean, for the purposes of today, I'm just going to do one more. But, you know, when you start getting 7 or 8 shades of the same colour, that's really going to start giving you some real depth and dimension. But for now, I'm just going to add a bit of white to the green, and I'm going to get a light green. Alright, I don't want to go too light, but I want to just add another shade of green to that, just to mix it up a little bit more. So, and same again, just dollops here and there, a bit of water so it goes on easier. This is fun. I'm enjoying this. Just a little something different than doing a whole 3-hour painting in the studio. I mean, you get a more amazing painting, obviously, but I'm quite enjoying this one too. This is fun and easy. And a happy, colourful painting. That's what painting should be all about. So just put on as many of these little dollops, dabs, leaves, whatever you like to call them, as you want, until you're happy, essentially. And I think I'm almost happy there. A couple more here. Yay! And there we have it. We have our beautiful little rainbow painting. Our rainbow tree. Yay. Oh, that's going a bit blurry going close up, eh? Yeah. I've got quite a uniform line around there, so I'm just going to put a few random ones out and about. Cool. Yay, it's fun, isn't it, Joe? I'm glad you're enjoying it. And like that, just like that, we have a painting. So there's only one more thing left to do now, and that is autograph your painting. If you have a smaller brush, perhaps, I haven't got one handy, or a marker pen or whatever, put your autograph on it. Claim it as yours. Yes, so well done. Thanks for joining me. You know, so what is next? You know, now that we've done the basics of colour mixing, and you've learnt the three, primary colours that you need, and that there's different combinations of colours with different quantities give you different results. All right, so I highly encourage you to just go and experiment. If you're brand new to painting, go and experiment and just try all the different combinations of different amounts of red and different amounts of yellow to mix different shades of orange, for example, and just have a play. Keep playing and learning, and that'll really help you get a better understanding of each colour, and get practice at mixing as well, and also how each colour, what shades each colour makes. And the more you do that, the more you'll get better at, you'll just instinctively know after a while, And like I said, if you can find one by a colour wheel, they are awesome for people learning to paint. You can see I've used almost all of the colours around the edges here for our painting. Yay, lovely. But they are really good useful asset to have. All right. So go get yourself one of those. And now, of course, if you want to get more of my step-by-step guidance, if you've enjoyed today, do come and join me for a paint party, online or in the studio. I was going to load another virtual paint party today, but I ran out of time. So I will hopefully load a new one tomorrow, possibly Tui. We might do a Tui online next, but also in the studio. I think we've got Island Bay. Mind you, that one's booking out real quick. But yes, if you want to get more of my step-by-step guidance, come and join me for a paint party. And if there's anyone else who's learning to paint, please do share this with them. Just share the link with them, tag them, and post their name in it, and let them enjoy a little bit of learning of colour mixing and the happiness of painting a rainbow as well. Just to put a bit of colour and a bit of cheer in their life. So just to sum up what I taught you today. The basics of colour mixing. All right, so now you have all the tools you need, all the lessons you need for colour mixing. So I showed you, the first thing I taught you was about the three primary colours, red, yellow and blue, and how you can use those to pretty much mix any colour under the rainbow. Yay. And just practice mixing different amounts of each colour, all right, to get different shades. Now I also taught you how to mix your colours, that it's really key to always start with the lighter colour first and then add a little bit of the darker colour at a time, just a teeny little smidge of the darker colour as you go to get to the colour you want. All right, always start with your lighter colour, little dabs of the darker colour, and mix as you go. And the third thing I taught you was about using less colour. All right, you just don't need 15 different colours to get a colour that you want. All right, most colours you can mix with 2 or 3 colours. You don't need to have 6 colours mixed together. All right, so using less colours will get you better results, and you won't end up with muddy colours. All right, and if you do get a muddy colour, just start again. All right, find somewhere else on your palette, start again. All right, simple. So that's what I taught you today, and that, go and have an experiment. Just go and play. Grab a spare canvas, grab a piece of paper, grab whatever you can, and just mix to your heart's content and just learn what all your colours do. The more you do it, the more intuitive it will become. All right, and get yourself a colour wheel as well. That'll be good. That'll help you along the way also. So, and I showed you how to paint a happy rainbow. Yay! So yeah, go have an experiment, go play, get on a paint party with me if you want to learn a whole bigger painting. But really, the most important thing is just to have fun with the process, relax, enjoy it. Don't get too serious about it. It's about fun and about enjoying what you're doing. So go paint, go have fun, go enjoy, and get that happy boost in your emotional bank account. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Have a happy rest of your week, and see you at the end of a paintbrush again soon. Bye.